right, thank you so much. And one neat feature that the FBC offers is that our technical assistance can be provided in 20 different languages using language lines. So if you aren't a native English speaker, we can accommodate that as well. So an important event that's actually happening today, later this afternoon at 3 p.m. Central Time, is one of our partner agencies, the Flower Hill Institute, is going to be hosting office hours with an FSA specialist. So if you have any questions specifically as you start to dive into the FSA forms and something's holding you back, bring that question. It doesn't have to be ERP2 specific. It can also be about PART programs or just FSA in general. And if you ever just have any questions about FSA that I can't answer, I'll connect you to somebody who has the answer. So just shoot me an email. And one neat thing about the office hours today is because this is a really busy time of year, you do not have to sit through the entire office hour session. You can just bring your question, pop on, pop off. Or you can stay the whole time because I'll be there and it'll be a lot of good information, I'm sure. So we'll have the survey info that'll be sent to you, the chat box. We're going to share some links in there. And then you can also always find this information on our Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So our goals for this ERP2 program is that we want to reach farmers and producers and connect them with FSA resources. And we want to help our farmer members with the entire process of technical assistance. So you could have a general question about just the basics of ERP2, or if you want to set up a Zoom call with me, I'll actually help you fill out the forms and go through them. We want to also help our producers enroll in appropriate risk management for their operation. So we want to help you with everything from making sure that your bookkeeping and tax record keeping is complete to also making sure that you're aware of all of these programs that can serve your business. So the FBC has quite a few resources for this program. So our membership is over 30,000, and we have members in just about every state and territory in the US. We also have quite a few state chapters, which can help people with local events. And if you're far away from our Waco office, we can still connect you with people within your state. We're offering outreach events in person, so boots on the ground events. We're also offering a lot of different webinars. So next month, we're going to have one on taxes with FSA programs and how receiving any of these programs might impact your taxes. We also have a series of podcasts that we're launching. We have personalized technical assistance. So that's just shooting me an email and I'll show you the form that you'd fill out to get that technical assistance, and we can walk you through the program however you need. And if you're not on a computer, we can do it over the phone, or we can even mail forms, so you don't have to be connected to a computer or smartphone. We also are really blessed to be able to collaborate with a lot of different partner organizations like Women Ranching, the Latino Farmers and Ranchers, and Flower Hill Institute. So if we don't know the answer, there's somebody on the team who probably has a lot of experience and can provide details. We want to connect all of our members with the FSA service offices in their area. Now, not every county has those right now, but we want to make sure that people know where to find them. So if you don't know where your county office is, just send me an email with where you live, where your farm is located, and I can find that for you. And we also want to share, after ERP2 is over, we want to share the rest of the FSA offerings with our members so you're aware of them. So there are currently quite a few number of standing disaster programs, and there are also additional programs that have been authorized by Congress to address recent disasters. ERP2 and the Pandemic Assistance Revenue Programs, which is also known as PART, are new, and how they're being delivered by FSA is also new. The core information needed to complete these programs isn't housed at the FSA office. These programs task farmers to gather their data and submit applications. So it's going to be self-certified, and a lot of times with other programs, FSA will actually go out and contact farmers and let them know that, oh, this might be a program that you can do. This program is a little bit more hands-off with FSA, and that's why we're brought in to provide the technical assistance piece that FSA normally provides for other programming. So one of the biggest questions I've gotten in technical assistance is the payment part, the payment piece. So this is part of the consideration when you decide if you want to apply for ERP2. You've got to kind of figure out if it's going to be worth it for you, because there are some sort of fine print aspects of this program. So right now, the first payment that you're going to be guaranteed is $2,000. And so that's going to be for anyone whose ERP calculation is going to be over $2,000. So say that you calculate your payment is going to be $10,000. The first check you get and the only guaranteed payment you're going to get is $2,000. But if your farm is a smaller operation, you didn't lose as much, and your total payment is say $1,500, you're going to receive that entire $1,500. So if you're under that $2,000 limit, you're going to get it all in one lump sum really soon. But for everybody else who has a little bit larger operations, basically all we know for sure is that you're going to get a $2,000 check, and then the rest of it is going to be based upon how much interest there is on this program. And because there isn't endless funds and we don't know exactly how many people are going to be applying for how much, they want to try to keep it as fair as possible. So it isn't a first come, first serve. It's a little bit more equitable in that way. So depending on the remaining funds later on, FSA may be able to complete a second payment, but there's just no guarantee at this time. So you really want to consider that when you factor in how much time it's going to take you to gather all of your documents to support your claim. So the first things that I do when somebody's interested in this program is we go over a screening checklist. So we talk about if your farm experienced a qualifying disaster. Now the term qualifying disaster, if you don't know if your disaster, like you don't know if it was Hurricane Hugo or something that specifically has a reputation and you know about it. If you don't know if you experienced a qualifying disaster, but you think something happened, just shoot me an email because we have charts and I can help navigate that with you. I just need your county information. Then we have to go over, did the disaster occur in 2020 or 2021? I ask if you've ever worked with your local FSA office before, because that impacts the forms that you'll need to fill out completely for this program. And then, did your farm have a loss of gross revenue in 2020 or 2021 compared to 2018 and 2019? And now, if your farm significantly changed, say you added 500 acres or you stopped farming 500 acres, in those years, we can adjust some things. So we just have to have open dialogue about that, just so I understand as we're filling out the forms. And then the biggest catch is, did you raise a qualifying crop? So that's really important because every FSA program is a little bit different. So this program is intended to help farmers who experienced a decrease in revenue due to eligible crop loss by a qualifying disaster event. And it's to provide assistance to diversified farms, direct marketers, and others that don't always tend to benefit from all the other bigger programs that are often designed a little bit more for commodity businesses that are often medium to large size farms. So we're definitely encouraging small to medium sized operations that might not normally try FSA programs to try this one out. One really key piece of information, though, is that enrollment runs through June 2nd. So you don't necessarily have to have every piece of paperwork in and all your supporting documents in, but you need to make sure you have the specific ERP2 forms in. And we can email you those if you don't have those or access to those. So June 2nd is the date. And also important to remember that this does not provide assistance for crops intended for grazing. So if you had a hailstorm and your hay field that you raise your beefers on got destroyed, that does not count. This has to be for commercially marketed crops. All right, so as I went through the training, these are some specific ERP2 vocabulary words that are really important as you fill out the forms. So for eligible crops, they're grouped into 3 categories for ERP2: specialty crops, high value crops, and then other crops. So specialty crops are sort of your very commonly referred to crops like fruits, vegetables, culinary herbs and spices, nursery. It covers a lot of different things. And then with the other crops, it's the use of grain, silage, or forage. But all 3 of those need to be intended to be commercially marketed. So they can't be things that your family was going to use. They have to be things that were actually for sale. The benchmark year is tax year 2018 or 2019, and you can select either year for your benchmark year, but this is just used as a guide to represent a typical year of revenue for your farming business. Then there's allowable gross revenue, and that can be from several sources. And if you have your Schedule F form, that's going to be really helpful for filling this out. It is not required for ERP2, but it's going to be really important to have. And if you don't know what that is, you definitely want to sign up for our next webinar on tax and bookkeeping. So this could include sales of eligible crops, value added commodities. We also need to add any crop insurance payments, payouts that you've received, and any other government payouts that you've received. So with ERP2, there's something called a linkage requirement. And what that means is that for the next 2 years on the crops that you claim had a disaster, you have to have insurance on them. And there's a couple different ways you can have insurance. There's a program called NAP, and there's also a whole farm insurance, but you also need to really consider that when you apply, because you have to consider the cost of that, just depending on your area. And FSA is a really good resource for that, and we can connect you with sort of specific information to find out how much that would actually cost you, a good estimate. So there's the 522 FSA form, and you'll have to fill that out and sign. And that just says that you're going to get crop insurance or a NAP coverage agreement. And you also have to make sure you fill out an acreage report during the linkage years. So if you don't already do an acreage report, you may want to talk to some other farmers that grow a similar crop in your region, and we could connect you with your chapter leadership within your state, because they might know some people. But it's important to find out how much time does that actually take, because some farmers don't want to commit to that. The type of coverage that you have to get is either that crop insurance, the non-insured crop disaster assistance program, which is called NAP, or whole farm revenue protection. So if you want to see if you qualify, you just have to make sure that you had that qualifying disaster event that occurred in 2020 or 2021. The crop loss must have resulted in a decrease of allowable gross revenue in the disaster year compared with those benchmark years, which you can choose as either 2018 or 2019. And you have to make sure that you had an eligible crop. And unfortunately, being a logger's wife, timber is not included in this one, but there's going to be other programs that we're going to feature. So if ERP2 doesn't fit your operation, we're still going to find an FSA program that you can benefit from. So FSA has given us a very long list of what a qualifying disaster is. So it's pretty much every awful thing that you could have happen to your farm. Flooding, wildfires, winter storms, and we do have a sheet, and that's also available on the USDA dashboard as well, but we can go over to make sure that your issue is a qualifying disaster. So the forms that are specific for the ERP2 program are the 521, and this must be submitted to where your farm is located at the FSA office by June 2nd. And that can be emailed, and we've also heard that we can drop it off in person as well. And then there's the 522, and on this form is where you indicate which crops suffered the loss. And then also that you agree to buy crop insurance for the following 2 years on those crops. And you're not required, if for some reason you that specific crop or you got out of farming, you wouldn't be required to buy crop insurance on those things. So if you're new with working with FSA, your farming operation, it's really helpful to have these forms on file. You don't always need all 5 of these forms, but you definitely need the top 3. And the nice thing with that, if you have them on file already, is that when you want to apply for a program like the ERP2 program, then you would only need to fill out 2 pieces of paperwork. But it's a little bit intimidating if you've never worked with FSA before, and I tell you that you need to fill out 6+ forms. So I just wanted to go over these. They have lovely names, but most of them are actually quite quick to fill out and take less than 5 minutes. But the 2047 is the customer data worksheet with identifying information. And it's important for the ERP2 program. And I think just about any FSA program that you have a farm number. So it's just a kind of locating number that the FSA has for each farm. You also need the 902, and that's your farm operating plan. That's a really common USDA form that's needed for a lot of different programs. And then there's the 1026, and that is required for the ERP2 program. And basically it's a wetland conservation form. So just saying that, you know, you're not going to farm in a swamp full of some sort of endangered waterfowl. So you just have to make sure you have all three of those forms. And some of these forms you don't have to fill out every year. Some of them, it's just if you move or there's some operational change. And then some of these need to be updated a little bit more frequently. The 901 may or may not apply to you. So that's just how your business is set up about legal entities. And then the most important one, I think, for our Farmer Veteran Coalition membership to know about is the 860. So that's the socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher form. And there are some caveats with that one as well, but I want to make sure we go over all of them. And if you don't want to apply for the ERP2 program, I still think it's really worth connecting with your FSA office and getting these forms out of the way. So when a program does pop up that really might fit your operation well, you've already got these done. Okay, so for that last one that we talked about, there are some guidelines for veterans. Obviously, you have to have served in the armed forces, but you also can't have operated a farm or ranch for more than 10 years, or you must have obtained the status of veteran during those previous 10 years. So it's more of a beginning farmer and rancher / veteran guideline. And you also have to own 50% or more of the farm to qualify for that. There's also another, this is a little bit of a rabbit hole, but another thing to be aware of, and it's the limited resource farmer qualification. And you can qualify for that for program year 2020, for disaster years 2020. And you must be a person whose direct or indirect gross farm sales did not exceed $180,000 in 2017 and 2018. And then you also have to have a farmer's total household income has to be below the poverty line. But those are two things that we can definitely go into and that are worth being aware of, because that can impact how much you pay for crop insurance if you get the NAP program. So those are some important things. So the tax help piece is also really important. I know that none of us farmers really like to do the bookkeeping part, but it is really important because without being able to prove a loss of income, it's really hard to apply for any of these disaster programs. So we're going to have those upcoming FBC webinars. Ruraltax.org has a lot of information. The Small Business Administration has a special Veterans Outreach Center. If you have a land grant university in your area, those often have the most robust extension services. And then there's also agricultural finance, tax, and asset protection, and they've got a ton of information. And then if you don't mind saving the date for July 12th, there's going to be an ag taxes seminar put on by farmers.gov, and that's going to have a ton of information as well. So if you're interested in getting technical assistance, what you'll do is just go to our website, and in the news section, we've got a little blurb, short story about the ERP2 program, and it's got the link for this. And this is what the form looks like. So it's very short, and it basically just helps me get some information about where your farming business is located. And again, if you're not able to connect with an internet connection, we can do this offline as well. And you can always reach out to our FBC Farm 800 number or shoot me an email. So for more resources about this program, the Flower Hill Institute has a lot, farmers.gov. And then if you're interested in learning a little bit more of the specifics, FLAG, which is farmers, it's lawyers that have basically put together a legal guide. Their legal guide is really helpful with some more information in depth about specifics for eligibility and requirements. And then the FSA link below that That has a dashboard, so you can actually look at in real time how things have been paid out in your county and in your state. It has a lot of statistics, and it also has a frequently asked question area with a lot of information and the specific FSA forms available that you can print out or fill out online. And that's a really great resource for this program. So I'm going to throw it over to Joshua from FSA, and he's going to fill in the rest.
All right, thanks so much, Kate. Great job that you've done kind of explaining ERP2 that we have there. I don't have a presentation, I guess, to do to it, but I just want to hit on a couple high points on the Pandemic Assistance Revenue Program. And so this program, it's similar to the ERP Phase 2 program, but instead of focusing on natural disaster losses for 2020 and 2021, it's focusing on revenue losses that were at least 15% in calendar year 2020 due to losses from COVID-19 that producers may have suffered. And so with this program, again, it's a revenue-based program similar to ERP2. And so we are looking at that benchmark year for producers. So we're taking a look at your 2018 or 2019 calendar year as you select, and then we're comparing it to your 2020 calendar year revenue to see if you did have a 15% or greater loss in revenue. With both of these programs, ERP Phase 2 and with PARP, there are some online tools that are available both on FSA's website and on farmers.gov. Both of those online tools, and I think I answered a few questions in the Q&A box with these, but those online tools are very good tools that are available for those that do have access to them, to be able to determine what types of sales, what types of revenue that you would include and would not include with coming up with those figures. And so by doing that, it allows you to see kind of on paper, once you're able to fill that information in, exactly what counts, what doesn't count, and you can see what those disaster year and benchmark year numbers are, and then be able to see there whether or not it makes sense for you to then go in and apply for that program. Also with those online tools, because I know a couple questions in the chat, also asked about producers that were new for 2020. For producers that were new for 2020, particularly with the ERP Phase 2 program, I think also to some extent with PARP, if you were a new producer in 2020, there are some adjustment measures that may be available to those producers that will take into account what your anticipated revenue for the year would have been, given if you had a complete year and not had the pandemic or natural disaster kind of disrupt anything there. And so that online tool, again, it is there to kind of help make the process a little bit easier for producers to apply for. Now, granted, these are both new ways for FSA to do programs. We've never really administered revenue-based programs before, and so there is a little bit of a learning curve, both for our producers coming in to apply, but also a little bit for our staff as well, because most things that we've done, they've been kind of more straightforward than this. And so it's a new process, and so it's taken a little bit of time for us all to kind of adjust to it. But definitely, to the extent that we can utilize those tools, I think it'll be very helpful. Most of the information that producers will need to apply will be found on your Schedule F forms. And so now, again, even with that, we do understand that not everybody files a Schedule F. And so whatever other documents that you do have that you've kept up with your expenses, but you've kept up with your revenue and all of those things, and you may be able to find the information that you need from those records on what's needed to actually apply for the programs. Now, in terms of getting assistance with filling out the applications for both of these programs, again, your FSA offices, they can always are there as kind of a first stop if you do have some of those questions on some of the more general things that are there. But if you do need more focused technical assistance, organizations like Farmer Veteran Coalition and other cooperators that work with across the nation are available to help producers with answering, again, some of those technical questions and being able to make sure that they're filling out the applications correctly. And so, again, if you do have any of those questions, definitely reach out to Farmer Veteran Coalition, your local FSA office, or even another cooperator in your area that may be able to answer some of those questions that producers have for that program. Another thing I'll touch on a little bit will be the linkage requirement that Kate mentioned for the ERP Phase 2 requirement. So with that, producers, again, either you have to get a form of crop insurance that's through the Risk Management Agency, and you can get that through one of their agents that work with Risk Management Agency on administering the federal crop insurance program. Online, there is an agent locator. And so if you've never done crop insurance before and never considered it on Risk Management Agency's website, that agent locator can help you find a crop insurance agent that's there local to you. And so you can definitely reach out to them to see what your options are in terms of coverage through them. If for some reason certain crops that you're growing may not be eligible through the Risk Management Agency, or the type of coverage that they offer may not fit you well, then we may be able to cover you through the NAP program. And that's the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program. NAP, it's a program that covers those crops that you can't get coverage for through the Risk Management Agency. And so it can vary depending on where you're located. I know across Texas, some crops are covered in certain counties and some aren't. And of course, that can be true across the nation, depending on just where you are. And so for that coverage, there is an administrative fee of $325 per crop, and no more than $825 per county for producers that need to get this coverage. And if you operate in multiple counties, then that coverage level won't exceed $1,950 for base level coverage. Now, for eligible producers, eligible underserved producers, so beginning farmers and ranchers, limited resource farmers and ranchers, social disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, and of course our veteran farmers and ranchers, if they meet the qualifications for either of those categories, then that basic fee waiver can be waived for that for NAP coverage. And so for those that qualify and have crops that are eligible for it, it's essential to getting a free policy to be able to cover those crops. Depending on where you are in the country and what crops you're growing, there are deadlines to actually purchase that coverage. And so you'll need to check with your local FSA office to find out what the sales closing deadlines are for the crops that you're growing. So that way you can be sure to get that coverage as soon as you can before the sales closing deadline, to make sure that you're covered. Again, it is a requirement under ERP2 if you receive a payment that you will have, again, either that crop insurance coverage or that NAP coverage. But even as a matter of best practice, if you will, it's good to use that as a risk management tool. Again, you never know, again, what type of natural disasters may occur. Not that we want to deal with any, but again, there are things that happen. And so we want to be sure to that producers are utilizing either those risk management programs that are available, so that way if disasters do occur, it hopefully allows them to be able to kind of recover a little bit faster, and being able to get back into active production and not spend a lot of time having to work through the weeds of getting a lot of those things straightened out and having to wait for programs like these to come along. But with that, so the deadline, again, as Kate mentioned, for the PARP program as well, it is June the 2nd. And so both of them have, it and ERP2 have the same June 2nd deadline, which is about a week and a half away. And so understandably, not a lot of time between now and then, but definitely if either of these programs or both of them may be of interest to you, we definitely encourage you to check out those online tools, reach out for technical assistance, reach out to your local office, so that way you can get signed up for both of these programs. One other difference that I'll mention between ERP Phase 2 and the PARP program is that while ERP Phase 2 only covers crops, the PARP program covers generally all commodities, so it covers crops and livestock. And so for those producers that, again, if you did have either of those or both of those types of commodities in your operations, then PARP may be another program to also consider as well, as one that you may be looking to applying for as well. And so but Kate, I think that's all. I think I just need to hit on them, but definitely can answer any other questions that you may have, or if there's some things in the chat that we need to address.
Thank you, Joshua. That was really helpful. We do have a few more questions. One question is, can this be shared with our local FSA office, as they're not typically very informed on specialty crops like vineyards? They're struggling to learn what we can. So can we ask a question in our during the Kansas FSA office? So can they share it with them, or how can that work?
Yeah, so definitely reach out to your local FSA office. And so they can make sure to try to get you the information that you do need. Understandably, there are certain types of specialty crops that all local FSA offices, no matter where you are, may not be as familiar with. But in each state, there is a state office there, and there's a state office program specialist that's designated to work with these programs. And so definitely the local office does have their resource, their state office to be able to reach out there to get additional information on working with certain types of specialty crop operations. And so definitely just reach out to your local office, and if need be, you can reach out also to that state office program specialist to answer some of those additional questions that you may have.
Okay. And then it's the filing for Part D. You have to claim all qualifying revenue, or can application be focused on only the department within your organization that had commodities where there was an extreme loss?
So with the part program and also the RP2 is going to look at the entire farming operation. And so you're going to include, again, if it's determined or identified as an allowable revenue, then you want to include all of those on the application. But alternatively, if it's something that will be excluded from that gross revenue category, then you'll exclude that. Both programs have a fact sheet that go into some detail on what would count as allowable revenue and what would count as revenue that you would exclude from your gross revenue. So be sure to take a look at those to be able to determine what you want to include and what will be left out when you're doing those calculations.
Okay. We just got one more. This is more of a general question for all of us. The number of conditions to apply to all these programs are a huge barrier. It's mostly the time that it takes to try to put in. What can be done differently so the USDA case managers could complete this for the farmers? And that's really what Kate is here for. And what we're here for, Joshua and the rest of the collaborators that's working on this program, Kate's here to help make that process a lot easier, and she can help you along the way. And if you don't know, if she doesn't know, she can also reach out to Joshua or anyone else that knows more. We're here to help make that process a little easier. You can feel, Kate, if you can put your email in the chat, email her anytime, even our support email as well. And we'll help you fill out the form, find more resources if ERP or if either of those don't work, maybe there's another program that works. We're here to make this as easy as possible with the least amount of stress as well. And then if you want grant forms, reach out to Kate and we can get them to you. And we can also ask other people too. If we don't have them, we give them to you as well. And then let's see, there might be one more. So one last question, Joshua. Do you know if it's the vines that can be covered or the grape harvest crop? As drought affects the vines at various ages differently. The vines have an initial cost for planting, but don't yield grapes right off the bat. Are you ensuring the potential grape harvest or the vines themselves in the first couple of years? Is there a consistent answer, or does it vary?
So, and Brian, depending on, I don't want to say it's a variable answer, but I know this touches on a couple of different programs within FSA. Generally, when we're looking at the production itself, we're looking at the actual fruit or whatever's being produced. And so under the NAP program, when we're looking at what would be covered, it would be the actual grape crop that would be covered under the NAP program. And so part of the NAP program is that, well, you do have to, well, after you get the application for coverage, you do get coverage for, you do have to file an acreage report with your local FSA office. And then you also have to establish your production history. And so if you have production records, they'll ask for those so that way they can build up what your individual production history will be. From there, you also have to make sure to report that annually so that way that information can stay up to date. And so as you have a loss, generally the way the program is designed to work is that you will be able, or any assistance that's paid out through the NAP program will pay on what the average production would be for the grape crop itself. Now with the vines themselves, there's another program that's available through Farm Service Agency, and it's the Tree Assistance Program, or TAP. For certain natural disaster losses, TAP does cover tree, fruit, and vine crops. And so if there's a drought that starts affecting it, basically if it kills off whatever the excessive, whatever the normal mortality is for those rates, for the grape vines, then you may be eligible for assistance through that to either rehabilitate or to replant those vines. Again, both of those, they get a little bit deeper off into the weeds, and I don't want to get too off into the eligibility specifics of a lot of that. But again, those are two different programs that may be able to help out. So one is the NAP program, which would cover the crop production itself, the actual grape production. And then the tree assistance program may be able to cover any losses to the vines themselves due to a natural disaster. But with both those programs and any others, reach out to your local FSA office, and they can definitely answer additional questions on eligibility and what you need to do to sign up for those.
All right. That's all the questions we have for now. If you have any more, feel free to send Kay an email or support number. Also call us as well, 855 FBC Farm. We're here to help you out. Joshua, thank you so much for answering all those questions. We could not have done it without you. If you have anything else to say, Joshua, and then I'll let Kate finish it off.
No, but I was going to try to drop a link to the page in the chat for everybody to see for the Pending Persistence Revenue Program, and I think I might have accidentally sent directly to you, but that's the web page. So if they're interested in the PARC program, they can go to their web page on farmers.gov to read a little bit more about it there.
Yeah, let me go ahead and put that in the chat. So yeah, that's the link he was talking about. Feel free to check it out for PARC. And Kate, go ahead and finish off.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it's great to have a FBC expert on the call. And just shoot me an email if you have any questions. And we hope that you join us in another webinar coming up soon. So keep an eye on your FBC newsletters and are also on our social media. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, June 2nd is the deadline. So please do not delay. Reach out to us. We want to help out as much people as we can. If you have any questions, please just ask. And thank you for joining. Hope you have a great day. Thank you, Joshua.